Hello and welcome. My name is Jennifer and I will be the academic coach leading this session. Today we're going to go over alligations. Let's first take a look at a little introduction. Alligations are very important in the pharmacy setting because we may be asked to make a medication that is not available commercially using two different strengths of the same medication. When I say that a medication is not available commercially, I mean that the manufacturer who makes the medication does not make a certain strength that the doctor wishes to use. An example problem of an alligation is that you may be asked to make 60 grams of a 3% hydrocortisone cream from a 2% and a 5% hydrocortisone cream. In the lesson, we will learn how to calculate how much 2% and 5% are needed to make the 60 grams that the physician has ordered. So let's go ahead and take a look at where we're going to start because there's so much information here. We're going to first start out by setting up our tic-tac-toe grid. Each of these squares contains important information to solve this problem, but it's our job to fill in the information. I'm just going to go ahead and write some information right up here on top. So according to the question on the previous slide, we're making a 3% cream from a 5% and a 2% cream. This is the information that I'm going to use to fill in my tic-tac-toe grid. So if we have a percent strength of our desired product, that's what we're responsible for making. So in this case, it's 3%. I have my two ingredients. One of my ingredient has a higher strength than the other, so my high strength is 5 and my low strength is 2. If you're reading the problem and setting up your tic-tac-toe grid and you ever wonder to yourself if you're placing the numbers in the correct boxes, look at the numbers numerically. You're always going to have a high number, a middle number, and a low number. If you put them in the boxes in numerical order from high to low, you will have them in the correct spaces. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 5, I'm going to subtract diagonally. So I'm going to take 5 minus 3. This is equal to 2 parts. I'm going to subtract diagonally this way, and I have 3 minus 2. That gives me 1 part. I'm going to add these two numbers together to get a total part. So I have 2 parts plus my 1 part will give me 3 total parts. One thing that I would like to point out is that everything going across the top of this tic-tac-toe grid goes with my high strength. Anything going along the bottom of the tic-tac-toe grid is my low strength. And when we have filled out the right side of the tic-tac-toe grid, I have my parts. So these parts are of equal value. So for example, if I'm baking a cake and I need 2 parts of flour to 1 part of sugar. So if I adjust my recipe and I'm only using 1 cup of sugar, then I'm going to be using 2 cups of flour. This tic-tac-toe grid that we've just filled out is now our recipe. So we're actually now going to use that recipe to calculate exactly how many mLs of each is needed to prepare what's ordered. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. So what I've done here is I just basically copied our grid onto this slide. So I have 1 part, my 2 parts, and my 3 total parts. Okay? And then I have your question. So we're making 60 grams. So this, how much that we're responsible for making, is very important here. When I solve for my high strength, I'm going to take the parts of my high strength, which we calculated as 1, divided by my 3 total parts, which we calculated as 3, multiply that by 60, and that equals 20 grams of 5%. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing when I solve for my low strength, except we're going to use the parts of our low strength. So I have 2 parts of my low strength divided by 3 total parts, and I'm going to multiply that by 60 grams. That's going to equal 40 grams of 2%. One thing I would like to point out here is that if I add the amount of each ingredient to each other to get a total, that's going to equal the amount that I'm responsible for making. It's always going to happen this way. This is a way that you can use to check yourself. If you add the two answers that you receive together and they do not total how much you're making, there's a problem with the calculation. You have to go back and check everything. Now that we've seen how it's done, let's go ahead and walk through another problem together. So this question, I have how many mLs of 50% solution and how many mLs of 5% solution are needed to prepare 675 mLs of a 10% solution. So I'm going to go about it by setting up my tic-tac-toe grid first. I have three percentages. I have my high percentage, my middle percentage, and my low percentage. I'm going to subtract diagonally. 50 minus 10 is 40. 10 minus 5 is 5 to give me 45 total parts. Now I'm going to calculate how much of each solution is needed to prepare my order. So I'm going to take, for my high strength, I'm going to take the parts of my high strength, which is 5, divided by my total parts, which is 45. I'm going to multiply that by 675. And when I put this into my calculator, I get an answer of 75 mLs. Now anything going along the top of 50%. I'm going to do the same thing for my low strength. So I'm going to take the parts of my low strength, which I calculated as 40, divided by my total parts, which is 45. Multiply that by the amount that I'm making. And when I put this into my calculator, I receive an answer of 600 mLs of 5%. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick check. If I add 675 together, it does total 675 mLs. So now I have received both of my answers for this particular alligation problem. Okay, so now that we've learned how to perform an alligation problem, I hope that this gives you the ability to complete some of your assignment questions. I would like to thank you for joining me, and you have a wonderful day, and thank you for choosing UMA for your education.